Family can be complicated. Add in a screaming 4-year-old, a stubborn parent in denial, and a sister who just wants one peaceful afternoon, and you've got yourself a full-blown domestic saga. It's not about being child-free. It's not about favoritism. Sometimes it's just about basic respect and emotional boundaries. And if you think that's dramatic, wait till you hear this story. I'm a 23-year-old child-free woman. I don't know if this is needed for the story. And my sister is 30 with a 4-year-old son. She's a single mom, ex-husband is not in the picture, and has no contact with her or the kid. I'm going to get straight to the point. That kid is a nightmare to be around. It's not his fault, it's my sister's fault. He very clearly has behavioral and mental health disorders, even at his young age. However, my sister was and is very ableist and refuses to accept that her son has problems. The kid screams bloody murder whenever something doesn't slightly go his way, screams and cries when he's overwhelmed, has meltdowns to certain sounds and textures. Like I said, I don't blame the kid for these issues, but my sister refusing to get him treatment or help makes the kid a nightmare to be around. So, as a result, I don't babysit the kid when my sister asks, more like demands. I do so. This causes a lot of fights between us and our family. I have a friend, 23 male, who's married to a wonderful lady, age 22, and they have a baby boy together who just turned 1. Yes, they got married and had him young, but it's not my place to judge them. This past weekend, they asked me to babysit for them, and I agreed for a few reasons. Their kid is calm, well-behaved, and a general good kid, toddler, baby to be around. I love babysitting him. Also, they asked me nicely and understood that I might say no because I'm child-free. They were polite about their request. A thing about me is that if you ask me to do something politely, even if it's something I wouldn't usually agree to, I'd probably do it because you were nice and polite. So for these reasons, I happily agreed to babysit the boy. My sister also asked me to babysit her son that day so she could have a day to herself, and I refused and told her I was already babysitting for my friends. She was pissed, to say the least. She said a few comments about how I was an ass and not a good sister, but I thought she dropped it after that. This past weekend, while I was watching the baby, my sister started banging on my door. I looked through the window and saw that she had her kid in a care bag with her, and I knew she was trying to drop him off and make me babysit. She was banging on the door, yelling at me, and calling me heartless and a baby hater, while I was holding a baby, ironic, and that I better open up and do my sisterly duties. I put the baby in a different room to keep him from getting scared by the noise, and told my sister through the window to leave, or I would call the cops. She started cursing for a solid 5 minutes before she finally left. I had the whole thing on my doorbell camera and sent it to the family group chat. Surprisingly, my whole family is on my sister's side. She keeps arguing with me about how I'd rather babysit a kid not even related to me over my nephew. I reminded her that her kid is a nightmare to be around, but she keeps saying that for family you help out. My sister has been cold since, and keeps sending me text messages to provoke me into arguing with her more. She's also started saying some pretty ableist and nasty things towards my friend's wife. My friend's wife is on the spectrum and has BPD, and my sister keeps saying that she should have been sterilized and never should have passed her issues to her kid. By the way, her kid has shown none of the signs that autistic infants usually show, so IDK what my sister is on. I will admit that I do feel a bit guilty because I never consider babysitting my nephew, but I jumped at the opportunity to babysit my friend's kid. My sister dad, 66, mom, 64, and brother, 33, are all calling me an asshole and saying that I'm just using the CF label to avoid family responsibility. I need advice on how to get my family to see my perspective on this. How can I explain to them that the issue isn't the idea of babysitting, but it's the behavior of the kid? My brother, 33, which I should have mentioned, has a wife and kids so he can't babysit. And my parents are in their early mid-60s, also probably should have mentioned, and claim to be too old to do so. I'm the youngest and was a whoops baby my parents had in their 40s by chance. Because of my young age and the fact I'm not married and don't have kids, they keep saying I'm the perfect person to babysit because I have nothing to do, not even taking into consideration that I have a job and friends of my own. In the words of my family, he already has his own family responsibility. You have none. Yes, that's pretty much always their response to when I ask why can't his kids don't like spending time with her kid because he's had violent meltdowns and hurt them before. The kids avoid that boy like the plague. I don't blame any of the kids in that situation. My sister's son clearly has behavioral and/or mental issues that cause him to react violently to overstimulation, which is not his fault. He needs help so he can develop ways of controlling his meltdowns. I don't know if that's the right phrase, and keep his emotions in check. My brother's kids, while mature for their age, are kids and don't fully understand why he acts the way he does, and therefore harbor resentment and dislike towards him. I feel bad for all the kids involved. Nobody is winning. I've muted the group chat, and I know this is a me issue, but I can't help but check on it every few hours and feel bad about causing a fight. I'm soft, I know. As for my nephew, I don't mean to sound rude, but what good would that do? Yes, I can have an expert weigh in their opinion, but at the end of the day, my sister won't get him help. So, what would be the point? Once again, I don't mean to be rude. He's close to turning 5, and last school year, he was supposed to be in preschool. He was enrolled, and of course the teachers noticed his issues right away and tried to convince my sister to sign him up for the SPED program in the preschool and for behavioral therapy. She outright refused, went off on them, and pulled her kid from the program. He's going to start kindergarten in the fall, and my sister said, if they insult her son, she'll pull him out and homeschool him. I feel bad for my nephew because it's not his fault he was born with these issues that cause him to act out when he gets overwhelmed. I sincerely hope my sister wakes up and gets him help, or that once he grows up, he'll get help himself. The family know the child is a nightmare. They keep trying to pretend he's not and ignore the issue, but they know. They don't want to piss my sister off by mentioning it, as she goes nuclear with insults and fights whenever someone brings it up. I love my family, I love my nephew, and I love my sister, but it is so wrong to just ignore the issues he has. He needs help. There is something wrong in his head. I'm not saying that to be mean or cruel or ableist in any form, but it's the truth. I really hope I wasn't offensive with my wording. It feels wrong to say, this kid has things wrong with him in the head, or he's messed up in the head, but I genuinely don't know how else to describe it. I really don't phrase it that way to be mean or ableist or any kind of ist or phobic, but that's the only way I can think of to describe it without a diagnosis. I don't know how much help CPS would be. We live in a small town in the South. I don't even know if CPS has an office down in our town district. The nearest town over is a rundown city with a high crime rate, child abandonment rate, and drug use rate, so I can imagine that the CPS offices there are probably overwhelmed. Sounds like she has mental health issues too. I don't want to speculate, but I don't think she does. I think she's just ableist towards mental health disorders specifically. I'm not saying that mentally ill people can't also be prejudiced towards others with disorders and mental illnesses, but she doesn't show any signs of having any mental illness, so I don't think she has any. I could always be wrong as I'm not a therapist or doctor, but this is just my perspective from growing up with her. My parents used to try and tell her this when he was smaller toddler and showing these behaviors. They were more tame then and have escalated as he got older. She blew up, said that if they kept insulting her kid, she wouldn't let them see him again. Obviously, I can't imagine the position that put my parents in. They love their children and grandchildren, so I can imagine a threat like that would make them cave. The problem is, my sister doesn't want him to be diagnosed with anything. She has this belief that kids are overdiagnosed as a way for pharmaceutical companies and hospitals to get more money out of parents and insurance companies. And I agree to an extent that we do have an issue of over-medicalization in our country, and that we tend to slap pills and medication over the problem, rather than find a way to actually resolve it. However, that doesn't mean I think that medication isn't the solution in some cases. I don't know what would help my nephew, but I'm pretty sure that doing nothing is worse for him. My parents and brother don't share the same beliefs about mental illness that she does, and I was in no way raised in any way that could even remotely cause that belief. I'm still shocked, angry, and horrified she said that about my friend's wife. I almost feel like I need to address in itself. She literally said my friend should be sterilized and prevented from having kids because she has a mental illness. I can't even wrap my mind around how cruel someone can be to say that a woman who's always wanted to be a mom and is a great mom should be sterilized simply because she has a mental illness. My original post was about 3 days ago, and ever since that post, my sister's behavior escalated. I tried to talk to her about getting help for my nephew, and she kept screaming at me every time I brought it up. She said a lot of derogatory terms towards people with mental illnesses and mental disabilities, terms I won't repeat here. That wasn't the only escalation. She was at my door several times a day starting 2 days ago, the day after I made my original post, banging on my door, screaming, crying, cursing, the works. She brought my nephew each time, and he always looked so confused and defeated. He was too tired to react or melt down like he normally does around loud noises. And it broke my heart to see that on my doorbell camera. I wasn't at my house. I was crashing with my friend and his wife. I took the advice of a commenter who said to put some physical distance between me and my sister. They said I was free to stay as long as I wanted, as long as I helped out with some house chores and childcare while I stayed, which I thought was more than fair. So, I'm staying in their guest room currently. I'm still with them, even though my sister isn't much of a problem. Many will be glad to know that my sister won't have parental rights over my nephew soon. She dropped him off at a safe haven site in the middle of the night. Totally a fun phone call to wake up to at 2 in the morning. And my nephew is currently with my parents. Social services placed him with my parents, and he's set to have mandatory therapy. In my state, don't know if it's different in others. If a child is abandoned in any way, safe haven or not, a physical and mental health exam is done. Other than being a little bit underweight, my nephew was physically healthy. He wasn't being physically abused like a few people were worried. But it was obvious he needed mental health, so he'll be starting therapy sessions soon, as mandated by a caseworker. We are not looking for my sister. After she dropped her son off, she left. She had quit her job a few weeks back, sold her car, and even her house a few weeks ago, and had been renting a place, so this was planned. In my personal opinion, she planned to abandon her son the day I was babysitting my friend's baby, which is why she had such a nuclear reaction. She did leave a note saying she can't do it anymore, she met someone, and that she doesn't want to be a mom to my nephew anymore. In her note, she said she deserves a normal kid, and not a burden like my nephew. I seriously hope that my sister doesn't have any more kids with this mystery person she's referencing, but it seems like she's running off to start a new life and family. She still has 30 days to reclaim rights over my nephew, but it doesn't look like she'll do that. Time will tell. Like I said, I'm still with my friends because I was worried my sister would do something. My parents and brother have also been blowing up my phone and coming to my house, switching between apologies and blaming me for this. They think that maybe if I babysat that day, she wouldn't have done this, but I think she wanted me to babysit so she could do this. I'm not mad at them for blaming me. I understand that my sister is still their family, and they're rightfully in shock and want someone to blame. They're human, and I know humans can be cruel sometimes while going through shock and grief. So, yeah, that's life right now. I'm currently sitting on the couch with my friend's baby while my friend is at work and his wife does a quick grocery run. She was going to take the baby, but I insisted on watching him, so she didn't have to hassle with the car seat in the very stormy weather we have in our area right now. This update is all over the place. I feel like I'm rambling. There's still a lot of unknown stuff regarding my sister and nephew, but for now, this is the update. I don't know if I'll post more regarding this situation. My friend's wife is telling me I should relax and just not think about anything relating to this until I'm more level-headed. But I don't think that's possible. Then, 11 days later, my sister abandoned her 5-year-old son a little less than 2 weeks ago and fled. Police are looking for her, but she hasn't been found yet. My nephew is with my parents and is in therapy. When that first SF happened, my parents were quick to blame me because I had refused to babysit the kid in the past, and the weekend before my sister ultimately abandoned him. They think had I babysat him that day, she wouldn't have fled. I've been staying with my friends since then, and oh my God, it's chill here. They're young parents with a baby, and yet it's chill here. Everyone is happy, they talk things out. When there's issues, they work together. I've met both parents of my friends, and they're nice and polite. Obviously, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I have seen some bickering, and they always find a way to resolve it. Growing up, my parents always argued a lot. My siblings were always loud and cruel to each other at times, and there always had to be someone to blame. If you were the person who was blamed, you were insulted and shunned for a while, then they would apologize. You were always expected to forgive and forget. My parents are trying to apologize to me about their blowout at me regarding my sister, and I can understand their initial feelings. I'm willing to forgive, but I know my family will also expect me to forget. But I can't forget. I don't think I can forget this whole situation. I'm about done with this whole BS and ready to just completely cut contact with my family after this whole mess. My sister got arrested a few months ago on several charges, including child endangerment, abandonment, and drug charges. She's been court-ordered to go to an inpatient rehab, but our state doesn't pay for it, which means that she has to pay for it. She does not have a job and has little no savings after burning through them on some drug bender. I work remotely and have a pretty decent income from my field and area. My parents are saying that I need to pitch in and help pay for the rehab because they and my brother and his wife are also paying a portion. And if I contribute, then they won't need to pay as much because it will be split 5 ways instead of 4. Here's where I think I am definitely the asshole. I asked my parents for the exact amount they want me to contribute. It was a fairly decent amount, I could afford it, but I was feeling petty after everything with my sister. My best friend recently had her second baby. Yay. And I decided to take the exact amount my parents requested from me and spent it on getting my friend some extra baby supplies, toys, decorations, clothes, and a few early Mother's Day gifts. When my mom texted me and asked for the money, I sent a picture of my shopping spree for my friend and said I had already spent the money on a proper mom. She called me an asshole and said I could have just said no and not give them hope I would pay. Being family doesn't mean being a doormat, and helping out doesn't mean enabling someone who refuses to help themselves or their child. In the end, choosing peace over chaos isn't selfish, it's survival. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't saying no to a tantrum-prone toddler, it's saying no to the adults who act just like one. Weddings are supposed to be about love, joy, and new beginnings, not long simmering family drama. But sometimes, even on your most carefully planned day, someone else decides the spotlight belongs to them. What starts as a celebration of 2 people joining their lives can suddenly turn into something else entirely. And when that betrayal comes from your own sister, well, this next story is just as messy and just as fascinating. Let me tell you, I, 29 female, got married 3 months ago to my amazing husband, 31 male. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but my sister, 32 female, managed to overshadow it in a way that I can't seem to move past. A little background. My husband and I had been trying for a baby for a while, and when we finally got that positive test, we were over the moon. We decided we would share the news with our family and friends at our wedding reception. Nothing crazy, just a small, heartfelt moment during the speeches. Only my parents and my maid of honor knew about this plan. A few weeks before the wedding, my sister pulled me aside to tell me she was pregnant. I was genuinely happy for her, and we had a sweet moment together. Then she casually mentioned that she was planning to announce it at my wedding. I was shocked and told her, as kindly as I could, that I would prefer she didn't. I even explained why, because I was also pregnant and planning to share the news that day. I asked if she could wait just a little longer so the day could stay focused on the wedding. She seemed a bit annoyed, but didn't argue much, so I thought that was the end of it. Well, fast forward to the reception, and guess what? Right after the speeches, she stands up, clinks her glass, and announces her pregnancy. The whole room erupts in cheers, and suddenly, my wedding turns into her pregnancy celebration. I was stunned. I didn't even get the chance to share my own news because it felt like I'd just be trying to one-up her. Later, when I confronted her, she acted like I was overreacting and said she just couldn't keep it in anymore. When I told her how hurt I was, she said I was selfish for wanting to control when people share their happiness. My parents think she was out of line, but are telling me to let it go for the sake of family peace. But I can't seem to move on. Every time I think about my wedding, I feel this bitter pit in my stomach because she took away a moment that was special for me. She, on the other hand, thinks I'm being dramatic and says I should be happy for her instead of making everything about myself. So, Aida for not letting this go. After the wedding drama, my relationship with my sister was icy at best. She kept acting like I was just being hormonal and selfish, and every time we spoke, she somehow turned herself into the victim. I finally decided if she thought I was selfish and dramatic, I might as well lean in just a little. A month later, my husband and I had a gender reveal party, low-key, just family, and a few close friends. We did not invite my sister. She found out through our cousin's Instagram post and texted me something snarky like, "Wow, guess I'm not family now?" I replied, "Well, I didn't want to risk you announcing something again and stealing the spotlight. Fair, right?" But the real revenge came at our baby shower. I had custom cookies made that said, "We waited our turn." One of the decorations was a sign that said, "One special day deserves its own celebration." A few people laughed, a few looked uncomfortable, but I saw my sister read the cookie and go very quiet. She asked if the cookie was about her. I told her, "If the shoe fits," and walked away. Now she's telling the family I'm the one being dramatic and petty. Ironic, no? But honestly, I don't care. I didn't ruin her wedding. She ruined mine. She can sit with that for a while. Also, my baby is due a week before hers. Guess who's gonna be very publicly posting baby pics right as she's going into labor? Not saying I'll be timing it, but I'm not saying that either. Some people say to take the high road. But when that road's been stomped on by someone who hijacked your moment and then played the victim, sometimes you just take a different route, one lined with custom cookies and quiet payback. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it satisfying? Definitely. And in the end, maybe this wasn't just a story about a ruined wedding. Maybe it was about drawing the line, once and for all. Imagine this. The love of your life betrays you, marries someone else, and disappears from your world. You rebuild yourself from the ground up, travel the globe, find peace, maybe even happiness. And then, one random morning, years later, in a city thousands of miles from the past, she walks back into your life like nothing ever happened. What do? What can you do? Let me tell you a true story. My ex and I met in college and were madly in love all 4 years in school. Got married after graduation in 2010. In 2013, I caught her in a year-plus affair with a coworker. I was crushed. She said they loved each other, soulmates, didn't mean to hurt anyone, blah, blah, blah. We divorced only 3 months later. I was crushed. Worst time in my life. I mourned for over a year. I heard they got married. One day I decided I was tired of being sad, so I completely let go of her in my heart, got off my butt, and truly moved on. I'm a programmer by profession and decided to take a pre-sales solutions consultant gig with one of the biggest software companies on the planet. That job has been amazing. I've traveled the entire world, every continent and all the major cities. Life has been a great adventure. I never did date seriously or remarry. I'm not opposed to casual dating and have dated beautiful women all over the globe. After my experience with marriage, I decided that wasn't my path and have been happy. Sometimes lonely, especially during holidays, but overall happy. I had decided enough traveling for a while, so I switched roles and am based in a major city in the US. I'm sitting in a diner on a Saturday morning eating breakfast and reading the news, Facebook, Reddit, etc. And somebody says, "Oh my God." The voice sounded like one of my women friends at work, so I looked up to say hi and my jaw dropped. It's my ex-wife. Here I am 2,000 plus miles away from our old hometown. Haven't seen her in almost 6 years, and there she is. I was dumbstruck. All I could manage was, "Hi." I hate to say it, but she looked beautiful. She said, I looked amazing. She asked if I was busy and that she didn't want to bother me, but that she'd love to talk. I said sure. We ended up talking for over 2 hours and continued for another couple of hours when we went for a walk in a close-by park. We were making small talk about mutual acquaintances, my stories of traveling the globe, everything but the elephant in the room. She finally asks me if I had gotten remarried at any point. I said no, once was enough. She seemed sad by that. We walked in silence for maybe a minute and she said, "I have to say that I'm so sorry for what I did to you. You didn't deserve it. It was incredibly shitty and has haunted me since it happened. You didn't do anything wrong." I said, "You fell in love with someone else and married them. I couldn't stop you from doing that. I wanted you to be happy." Then I asked, "Are you happy?" She laughed one of those joke laughs. Ha! She told me the OM and her fought constantly, and he ended up cheating on her and leaving her 2 years into marriage. I said, "I'm sorry that happened to you. I know how bad that can hurt." She said she knew that when her heart was broken, all she could think of was that she had done the same thing to me, and that tortured her. She said she fell apart for almost a year, engaged in very self-destructive behavior, and then went to therapy to figure out why she's so screwed up. She said that was extremely helpful, and several years ago, she finally grew up and holds herself accountable for her own actions now. She had ended up moving to this city because she has an aunt that she loves that lives there, and after her second divorce before age 30, she needed to make big changes in her life. The changes were noticeable. She's definitely more mature. I had to go and get ready for the evening with friends, so we said our goodbyes. We exchanged contact info and agreed to go have coffee and talk more. We have been doing that. We're both single. I guess there's no harm. I can tell she wants more from me. She wants me to want her back. She drops hints as big as the Pacific Ocean. I'm not dumb. I have to admit she still has that certain something that just makes my heart skip a beat. Something I can't describe. Something I hadn't found in anyone else since her. I guess it's chemistry between us. To be honest, I want to be more than friends. I want to hold her and kiss her. She wants that too, but as of yet, I've made zero moves. What holds me back? Fear. I'm afraid of getting hurt again. If she had been a casual girlfriend that dumped me, I would have shook it off and moved on quickly. She wasn't, though. She was my wife and the love of my life. I used to dream of her somehow, coming back into my life. Well, here it is, and I'm scared shitless. I don't know if I can give her that much of myself again. I'm way more protective of my heart now. We've both grown a lot, and the past seems like 100 years ago. If she wasn't who she is, I'd already be head over heels in love. I struggle with, do I pursue love with her again, or do I leave the past in the past? It sounds cliche, but it just had to be her. Of all the people I could have met here, it had to be her. I've gotten so many requests for an update. I have one, but was hesitant to post, because in this sub, I'd take a lot of grief. The update is, we got remarried over the Christmas holidays and we're now pregnant. She has grown a lot as a person. So have I. We're not kids anymore. We're in an adult relationship, and it's much better than before. Throw in the chemistry we've always had, and it's wonderful. I couldn't be happier. I do want to address the accusations that she tracked me down. She didn't. She had moved to our current city before I did. She really had moved on, went to therapy, and had grown a lot as a person. I just happened to be in that diner. We think it had to be fate or some type of intervening force. Neither of us are religious, but the astronomical odds of us running into each other, both single, and in a city neither of us had ever lived in, are hard to ignore. Obviously, the universe had a plan for us. I wish all of you good luck. My only advice is don't close your heart. You never know who will stroll into your life. Life doesn't always give us clean endings. Sometimes it hands us full circles, imperfect, unfinished, and terrifyingly real. He rebuilt his world from ruins, only to find the past waiting for him at a diner table one quiet morning. Was it fate, closure, or the beginning of something entirely new? Some stories don't ask for answers. They just ask us to feel.